The downfall of Samson is often explained in simple terms. Delilah is blamed, temptation is emphasized. The story is reduced to a moral warning about dangerous relationships. In many retellings, Samson is portrayed as a strong man undone by a seductive woman, a cautionary tale about desire overpowering discipline. The lesson is made neat and easily digestible. Avoid the wrong people, or you will lose your strength. But Scripture itself refuses to be that shallow. While Delilah undeniably played a role in Samson's capture, the biblical text presents a deeper, more unsettling explanation, one that does not allow us to place the blame entirely on another person. Samson's real weakness was not Delilah. It was a long-standing disregard for the calling that set him apart. From before his birth, Samson's life was framed by divine intention. His story does not begin with his first feat of strength, nor with his first mistake. It begins with a promise. Before he ever took a breath, God had already spoken his purpose. An angel appeared to his parents and declared that their son would be a Nazirite, consecrated to God from the womb. His life would be marked by vows, visible signs of separation, devotion, and belonging. Judges 13:5. Samson was not simply chosen for strength, he was chosen for holiness. The Nazirite vow was not about appearance or restriction for its own sake. It was a living symbol of devotion. Abstaining from certain things, maintaining certain boundaries, and living differently were meant to remind Samson and everyone around him that his life uniquely belonged to God. His calling was not a burden, it was a gift. And his extraordinary strength was never portrayed as a natural ability. Scripture is careful here. Again and again, the text emphasizes that it was the Spirit of the Lord who rushed upon him, empowered him, and enabled his victories. Samson was strong only because God was present with him. This distinction matters. Samson did not possess strength as an independent resource. He was not powerful by default. His strength flowed from relationship, from calling, from divine presence. Yet as we read through his story, the book of Judges slowly reveals something troubling. A widening gap between Samson's calling and his conduct. The disconnect does not appear suddenly. It grows quietly, incrementally, almost unnoticed at first. Samson repeatedly pursued what was right in his own eyes. This phrase is not incidental. It echoes a recurring theme in Judges, a time when everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Samson, though chosen by God, begins to mirror the very spiritual disorder he was meant to confront. He entered Philistine territory casually, without restraint or discernment. He formed attachments without wisdom. He crossed boundaries that were meant to guard his heart and his calling. He treated holy things as negotiable. What makes Samson's story unsettling is not that he failed once, but that he failed often and seemed unbothered by it. His violations of his Nazirite calling were not accidental. They were progressive. Each step made the next easier. Touching what was forbidden, lingering where he should not have been, desiring what God had warned against. These were not isolated missteps. They formed a pattern. The narrative does not rush toward Delilah as though she were the central problem. Instead, it patiently documents Samson's gradual erosion of spiritual seriousness. The danger in Samson's life was not rebellion, it was familiarity. He became accustomed to divine grace without cultivating divine reverence. By the time Samson encountered Delilah, his heart had already learned how to live near the edges of obedience. He had grown comfortable operating close to disobedience without fully crossing it, at least not in ways that seemed costly at first. He had learned how to bend without breaking. Or so he thought. Delilah did not introduce disobedience into Samson's life. She confronted him at a point where compromise had already become normal. This is why the repeated exchanges between Samson and Delilah are so revealing. Each time she pressed him for the secret of his strength, he responded with deception. He joked with sacred things. He played with truth as though it were harmless. What should have been unthinkable became entertainment. His willingness to toy with the truth about his vow reflected something deeper than poor judgment. It revealed that he no longer treated his consecration as sacred. He had grown careless with what was holy, and carelessness, when sustained long enough, dulls spiritual awareness. The most sobering moment in the account comes not when his hair is cut, dramatic as that moment is, but when Scripture delivers a quiet, devastating sentence. He did not know that the Lord had left him. Judges 16:20. Those words should unsettle every reader. Samson did not feel the departure of God's presence. He did not notice its absence. He assumed, as he always had, that strength would rise when he needed it, but it did not. This moment reveals that Samson's loss of strength was not sudden or arbitrary. It was the outcome of prolonged neglect of taking God's presence for granted. Samson assumed that divine power was automatic, that it would always be available, regardless of obedience. He confused God's patience with God's approval. God had been merciful. God had delayed consequences. God had continued to use Samson despite his compromises, but patience is not permission, and mercy is not endorsement. Delilah, therefore, was not the source of Samson's weakness. She was the instrument through which his hidden weakness was exposed. What ultimately brought Samson down was not seduction, but a divided heart, a life that relied on divine gifts while neglecting divine relationship. This is the tragedy of Samson's story. He wanted the power of God without the intimacy of God. He wanted the benefits of calling without the responsibility of consecration, and eventually, that imbalance collapsed. Yet even here, Scripture does not end the story in despair. In blindness, captivity, and humiliation, Samson is stripped of everything he once relied on. His physical sight is gone, his strength is gone, his reputation is gone, and for the first time, his self-confidence is gone. This loss becomes the unexpected setting for clarity. Samson, reduced and humbled, finally turns his attention fully toward God, not as a source of power to be used, but as the only source of life worth depending on. His final prayer is different from his earlier cries. It is no longer rooted in pride or presumption. It is marked by dependence. Though still imperfect, his last act acknowledges a truth he had long ignored. Strength belongs to God alone. Samson's final moment is not a celebration of his power, but a confession of God's. And in this way, Samson's story quietly points beyond itself. It anticipates the need for a greater deliverer, one who would succeed where Samson failed. Christ stands in deliberate contrast to Samson. Where Samson treated obedience lightly, Christ embraced it fully. Where Samson pursued what was right in his own eyes, Christ submitted completely to the will of the Father. Where Samson's strength faltered because of disobedience, Christ's power was revealed through surrender. Samson was set apart from birth, but struggled to live set apart. Christ was set apart and lived in perfect faithfulness. Samson delivered Israel temporarily and imperfectly. Christ delivers completely and eternally. Read carefully. Samson's story is not primarily about a woman who betrayed him. It is about a man who slowly drifted from his calling. It is a warning that spiritual collapse rarely begins with one dramatic sin. More often, it begins quietly with small compromises, unchecked habits, and a growing familiarity with holy things. It begins when reverence fades, when obedience becomes optional, when calling is remembered but no longer honored. Delilah was not Samson's real weakness. His careless relationship with God was, and that warning still speaks.